Good evening and welcome to the November 28th Millis School Committee meeting. Mr. Conroy is not here, so I am filling in as chair. Robin Briggs, I'm here to take attendance. Shayna. Here. And Denise.
Here.
And Sean.
Here.
And Superintendent Nalini is here. And Terry is not here today. This meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All meeting videos are also posted to the Millis Public Schools website under School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee meeting minutes and agendas can be found on the school committee page of the Millis Public Schools website. Is anybody signed in for open session?
No.
Oh my gosh, okay. Not today. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have a student rep, so we will start with Ms. Copese, our teacher rep. Thank you for coming back to school. I don't know, did you leave school?
Yeah.
How did rehearsal go today?
Rehearsal was great today.
Fantastic.
They may not think so. Actually, I'm going to start. Danielle Mannion sent a note that she'd like me to read to you guys tonight.
Nice.
So Danielle was our long-term TV production, and she retired last week. And so, here, this is from Danielle to all of you. It is with a deep sense of gratitude and nostalgia that I write to express my sincere thanks to the entire school committee for the support, encouragement, and opportunities provided throughout these memorable years. From the first day I walked into the studio to the bittersweet moment of saying goodbye to my last group of students, the experience has been nothing short of extraordinary. I have had the privilege of working alongside some of the most dedicated and passionate educators, supportive administrative staff, and most importantly, exceptional students. The unwavering support from the administration, in particular Bob Mullaney and Nancy Gustafson, allowed me to be able to offer some exciting opportunities for our students, both in school and post-graduation. I want to also mention the support of the tech services, in particular Dave Bush, who has supported me in the studio over the years. I am truly grateful for the positive and nurturing work environment that this community has provided. Above all, my heart is filled with gratitude for the countless students who have passed through the TV studio. Their enthusiasm, curiosity, and unique perspectives have been a constant source of inspiration. It has been a joy to witness their growth, both as filmmakers and as individuals. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the honor and privilege of teaching here in Millis. I leave with a profound sense of accomplishment and many cherished memories. With gratitude, Danielle.
Oh, how nice.
So, I thought that was a nice kickoff.
Yes.
All right. Unless tearjerky things. CFB had their November all-school assembly last week on the 20th, and they welcomed members of the community to say thank you, and the CFB students created gifts to give to the community members. Additionally, we had the entire Clyde Brown over here last Wednesday in 2 shifts to watch an abridged version of the Nutcracker. My personal moment of accomplishment was clearing the entire 4th, 5th, and 3rd grade out of the auditorium in 3 minutes at the end of the show.
Oh, wow.
Well done.
That's
If you're required to
Yeah, right?
That's pretty good, right? Yeah. Up in the middle school, they have been very busy. So the 8th grade classes have decorated and passed out their turkey boxes. They donated over 40 turkeys this year. In science, they've been learning about the conservation of matter and the real number in math. In English, they're reading 1793. That's a great book about the yellow fever epidemic in Philly. The yellow fever epidemic is really cool. We could talk about it forever. And in civics, the 8th graders are learning about colonies' path to self-government, and the Spanish students are looking at the flora and fauna of Ecuador. I'm pretty sure augmented by the actual pictures taken in Ecuador last year by all of the folks. 7th graders that were recognized at the all-school assembly in November for acceptance and inclusion were Nick Barisano, Maggie Daca, Ruby Fuller, Nicholas Jajari, thank you. I haven't had the Jajari yet. Now I know. And Kieran Ryan. Social Studies Department is wrapping up their First Nations project in 6th grade, examining Native American culture. 7th grade is looking at South Asian cultures, and 8th graders are still working on those 13 colonies. Term 1 has wrapped up with art students reflecting on their portfolios, and we've got to save the date for the spring art show. It's going to be on April 10th, so get that into your calendars. It was really great last year in the cafeteria with all the stuff. It was fabulous. We have a new poetry club that is meeting, so it meets every other Tuesday after school. Mrs. Accardo is running it. And we have the 6th grade hosting an in-class What Matters to Me museum, where they brought in things that matter to them and they expanded on it in writing. We are using some AI as models of student work in ELA classes, and they did the living family trees in Spanish for Day of the Dead. So it's been very busy upstairs. It's always busy upstairs. At the high school, I think tomorrow, yes, we are sending Ryan Berube, Lucy Sisto, JC Jakubowski, and Raisa Oliveira to the Difference Maker DECA competition. So I don't know when the last time we sent DECA was. I don't actually have a recollection of it since I've been here, Bob. How about you?
No, this is new.
So this would be like,
it's
yeah.
great.
Exciting.
So,
Yeah, it's great.
JC Jakubowski kind of spearheaded this as part of her senior
her
project.
Love it.
And so I'm pretty sure, is it Yvonne who is?
Yes.
It is Yvonne who has
Yep.
taken them on as their mentor, so we're really excited to hear about it. The Peer Leaders Club, we had several members attending the Norfolk County District Attorney's Team Rival Peer Leadership Conference at Gillette Stadium, where they heard from speakers engaged in activities on how to build leadership skills and also to kind of come back and look at the issues we're having here as they define them and think about how we're going to kind of come up with plans to move forward from them. The Environmental Action Club, which was a student-started club, Isabella Brioni started it last year, has made a donation of $230 that they raised to the Environmental League of Massachusetts to help in the fight against climate change. They've done can drives, they've done their bag drive. They're saying keep your eyes open for their next can drive because basically all the money they raise is being donated to other causes to kind of support them. So Mr. Alcanada is the advisor of that group, but Isabella Brioni saw a need and she started the club last year. Mr. Bigelow's class went to the CFB to visit their pen pals from Ms. Carlson's 3rd grade class. So this was a fun time to actually meet and craft. And what was kind of fun for me was a couple of Mr. Bigelow's students are in the Chem Club group that was working with the great when Ms. Carlson's class came over. So the kids got to see each other there. Charlie Lindbergh was like a superstar, let me tell you. It was like he couldn't have any more.
Bella's in love, thrilled with that. She loves her pen pal.
Yeah.
She comes home with all this information that they've written to each other. So
Great.
cute.
Delightful.
Oh my gosh.
It's so nice having the school so close.
Oh,
Yeah.
it really is.
Although I do miss the walk through the scary woods, Bob.
Well,
You do?
let's not
I
mention
actually
those
don't.
woods.
Now that I've gotten older, I like that there's a nice paved path between the two, and
Remember 4th grade running club? We had to run through those.
Yeah.
I can remember
I
sitting.
did a lot of work as principal
Bye,
in those
good luck,
woods.
honey. Have a good one. She used to follow Mr. Femino's footsteps over the hill in the snow. All right. And then, of course,
times.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we had Nutcracker this weekend. So the shows are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we're super excited. We are sad to bid adieu to Troy Blanchett, Anna Komoricott, Kristen Kelly, and Wilson Copese, and Dom Barisano. I actually think Dom Barisano might have the longest run out of this group of seniors, believe it or not.
Really?
Me and Kristen Kelly are tied. Not Wilson. She was opposed when she was little. She didn't do it on principle. But yeah, so.
Oh.
But yeah, no, we're super excited. We had our first dress rehearsal today. Mrs. Briggs got to come in at the tag end of it. It's a thing. So
It's
if you're
so
looking for something to do,
fabulous.
we're going to follow the Holly Jolly Fair on Saturday,
Yeah.
and then we are the prelude to the Santa Parade. So
Oh, that's
yeah, but don't worry, I timed it perfectly. We should be done before the Santa Parade kicks off. There's no conflict. And that's all I have. Any questions for me tonight?
Break a leg
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
weekend.
Go home and
Yeah,
have some fun.
160 kids in it?
We have 160 students over the
it's
three
the
performances.
best.
Each show has about 90 students in a variety of roles.
So,
It's
So
unbelievable work you
it's,
do.
We're up
It is.
35 students from last year.
Wow.
But not at the top end.
How many years
So-
how many years has it been going on, Stephanie?
So in Millis, this is our 15th year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, we started, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
so it's greater than 10% of the students in district are in this show.
Yeah. And what's fun is as they progress, as they hit 10th grade, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember you were an 8. They're like, how do you remember that? I'm like, because I do. So 10th grade's been fun this year because I have all the kids who've done Nutcracker all these years. And I also have the first batch of kids who did Clyde Brown outreach in my chemistry room this year. And so it's been kind of fun being like, do you guys remember when we did this way back when? And many of the, like, someone like, yeah, I remember being in the room. And I was like, I remember when we did this, are we going to do that again? I'm like, actually, we are. So,
They love coming over here and seeing their pen pals in their natural environment.
Yeah.
they also like asking if you know anybody. Do you know, I'm like, what grade are they in? They're in 7th grade. I'm like, I don't quite know them yet, honey, but give me a couple of years. So,
They go to Medway High School.
yeah, she lives in, I get that at the end of Nutcracker all the time. Do you know my sister? No. She lives in Chicago. Is she coming to the show? No. Well, I know you have an exciting presentation from Mrs. Knowlton, and everyone probably wants to go home to bed. So I'm going to bid you all adieu, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
So much.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I'll see some of you this weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow and the next day.
You'll be so happy not to see me next week.
Do you all have kids in it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my
Side
god,
of the room.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
What are they playing? Sorry, I'm a former Nutcracker mom, so.
Oh.
What do you have?
Naomi is a maid in the party scene, and Juliet is a gumdrop.
Oh my gosh.
Bella is a party child.
Excellent.
And hopefully Pete will be a reindeer.
It's the best. Oh my gosh.
Bella was a reindeer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hanya is a party parrot all 3 shows, and Maya is Angel and Party Child on Friday, Nutcracker on Saturday, and Clara on Sunday.
Ooh.
Fantastic, yeah. She's super excited.
She was many
Yeah.
moons ago. Luke was a reindeer, started as a reindeer. Oh yeah. It's such great memories.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Bella's rehearsal is like 3:45 to 4:15, but she goes right after school. And from watching all the other kids rehearse before her, she knows like all of the dances.
If you ever want to have a really good time, you come in and at rehearsal, you'll watch all the little kids doing all the big kids' parts.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh!
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, my kids are already
Fantastic.
like, next year I'm gonna be that, and
Yes.
I'm gonna be that.
Yes.
I'm like, okay.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
It's the
like
best.
a little sociological study.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, we only have one action item before Ms. Knowlton is up here. So I will take a motion to approve the minutes from last week.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the November 14th school committee meeting minutes.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we have some time and learning, and we have Ms. Knowlton coming up to present curriculum instruction assessment department improvement plan and the MCAS results. Come on down.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know, you got MCAS. I mean, like, that's
you're
pretty.
Exciting.
You're going to have tired children after the weekend.
Oh yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
That's very
They'll
true.
sleep good.
Yeah. Connecting Dave, yeah. Okay. So I assume you all have a copy of this in your folder.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk about data and information on student performance in Millis and the district curriculum department improvement plan. This is an overview of MCAS results from last year and the Access for ELs testing from last year through a district lens. The schools, the teams, the teachers have done a deep dive into their data at their grade levels and in their content areas to do some item analysis and make curriculum decisions, and then to look at student results as one data point for identifying who needs some extra help and support. So this is a more broad overview of how we're doing as a district. The first slide here. This is a summary of the assessments that were administered at each grade level last year. We administered ELA and math in grades 3 through 8 and 10. Science was grade 5, grade 8, and grade 10. You can see that as a district, this trajectory is what we've seen in the past, where we see improvement in student performance from grade 3 through grade 10. The bar graphs represent the percentage of students at each grade level who were in the meeting or exceeding expectations categories. Let's see. We had, in English language arts, we had a range of from 49% in grade 3 to 85% in grade 10 in meeting and exceeding. And in math, we had a range from 35% to 69% in grade 10. We look at student growth percentiles on the next slide to gain an assessment of whether our students are making the equivalent of 1 year's growth each year, keeping in mind that the average range for that is between 40 and 60%. You can see on this slide that in all areas, at all grade levels, our student growth percentiles are within that average range, and in grade 7 ELA and grade 8 math, we've exceeded that growth, so that represents some accelerated learning that happened last year following the pandemic. The next few slides show you specifics about the percentage of each student who fell in each of the achievement categories: exceeding, meeting, partially meeting, or not meeting expectations. I think you'll see as we go through the slides that the percentage of Millis students who meet or exceed expectations is higher than the state average at all grade levels in all areas. So this is English language arts combined for grades 3 through 8. We're also, while we're above the state average for exceeding and meeting, we're below the state average for students who are in the not meeting category. The next slide is grade 10 English language arts, and we see a similar profile, so to speak, here. We have a higher number of students meeting and exceeding expectations than the state level. And 1% of students not meeting, which in Millis is probably the equivalent of 1 student, because we're so small. Tell me if I'm going too quickly through these slides. In mathematics for grades 3 through 8, we see the same. A higher percentage of students meeting and exceeding expectations than the state average. And in grade 10, I think you can clearly see that the percentage of students is higher for meeting and exceeding expectations. Similar to English language arts for grade 10, we had 1% of students in the not meeting category. And those students get an extra opportunity, more than one opportunity to take the test and pass it.
A few weeks ago.
And in Millis, in my recollection and historically, Bob, all students
Yeah, we've
end up
not,
passing the MCAS.
I don't want to jinx anything, but we've not had a kid not graduate because of MCAS.
of MCAS.
Attendance is another story.
Always is.
For science, technology, and engineering, grades 5 and 8 took that assessment. Similar results. And for biology in grade 10, similar results. So this was our third year of administering MCAS after the pandemic. So we took a historical look at the results back to 2019. Beginning with ELA here, combined grades 3 through 8, looking at the percentage of students who were meeting or exceeding as compared to the state. As you can see, we were consistently about 10% above the state level over the last 5 years. Although we dipped a little bit, when you look at these historical slides, I think you'll see that we mirror the results of the state pretty closely. And just keep in mind that the test in 2021 for grades 3 through 8 was an abbreviated version, so they took a shorter version of MCAS in 2021, although the state claims to have adjusted the results so that we can do comparisons. It was a shorter version of the test. This is the next slide is a historical look at grade 10 in ELA, and our performance was 27% above the state, which is an improvement over our results in 2019. Indicates our 10th graders last year were achieving at higher levels in ELA than the 10th graders prior to the pandemic. And then if we look at math, grades 3 through 8, again, their combined performance. You can see that we have remained at a level above the state. We're not quite back to where we were pre-COVID in math, but we're making strides to get there. And again, our performance pretty closely mirrors the trend of the state over time.
It's
And I
pretty
think
interesting how similar the lines are.
And statewide, the data is showing that math is taking a little more time to recover than English language arts for students. And then looking at math performance in grade 10 from last year, 10th graders performed 19% above the state average and at a higher level than the cohort of 10th graders did just pre-COVID. We see sort of the same results for science, technology, and engineering for grades 5 and 8. Our science scores are not as high above the state level as ELA and math, but we've remained pretty consistently 6-7% above. Last year, the 10th graders took biology, and in 22 they took the biology exam. They did not take it in 2021. But as you can see, we've made some nice gains in student scores in biology.
And then prior to 21, they were taking the old
Right.
MCAS, so this is the next gen MCAS.
This is the next generation test, and they took a legacy test prior to 2021. So we aren't able to compare that data with this data because it was two different tests. And then finally, because we are interested in the effects of the pandemic on learning, we took a look at tracking students by cohort, by graduation year. So this slide looks at the class of 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31, and what their performance was in ELA each year. For the 7th graders and the 8th graders, we have their 2019 performance, and we can see that they are approaching the levels pre-pandemic in ELA. If we look at the class of 30, or the 5th graders last year, they took an abbreviated test in grade 3. And we think about the foundational skills that they missed in 1st grade and in 2nd grade as a result of the pandemic, so they're still working to come back from that. We've implemented a new literacy program at Clyde Brown that we feel like is really making some nice, we're seeing some nice gains of students already observationally in school. So hopefully that will translate to MCAS in the future.
Can I ask, I mean, obviously, we're kind of living it real time, but for these kids who, in those crucial years, like kindergarten through 2nd, 3rd grade,
Mm-hmm.
are we thinking that we can rebound? Like, what are we, that group of kids?
Well, my view on it is yes, and I think, as Maureen mentioned, there's a lot of early literacy, new materials that we've been able to access through grants that Maureen has received, and I think they've missed like important foundational
Yeah.
things, but I think, over time, it's going to take some time, but I think we can make recoveries. I don't know, Maureen, what your views are.
Sure. So last year, in particular, the year before, Clyde Brown staff at all grade levels spent more time focusing on building foundational skills that students had missed. So where they might not talk about phonics and decoding and fluency in 4th grade and 5th grade, they were doing that. And we have a very strong tiered system of support in place at Clyde Brown. There are regular data meetings, there's regular assessments of students, nobody falls through the cracks, and there are small group instruction, there's individual instruction if needed. Kids are getting pretty intensive support when they need it. For some, it may take a little longer, but we think everybody will get there eventually. And if you look at the MCAS data, by 8th grade, by 10th grade, certainly kids have rebounded. So we're going to be optimistic and hopeful and just keep working, towards it. Meet kids where they are, fill in those skills that they're missing and gaps, but continue to teach at grade level so that we don't fall behind. It's a lot of work for kids, and teachers, but they're doing a great job, and I think that the future looks promising.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's been the challenge in teaching the last few years, is teaching at grade level, not just doing remediation. Well, they didn't really have this in 1st grade, so we're going to redo 1st grade and 2nd grade. It's teaching at grade level, standards, and what does it take, what do they need to shore them up so that they can do that work?
Yeah. I think teachers are doing a really good job of doing some pre-assessment before they dive into new material to see what foundational skills or what entry-level skills students are missing, and if they need to, they go back and fill those in and address those. So
I think with the new curriculum, a lot of the teachers have commented on it's certainly more rigorous.
Mhm.
So we're hoping that will also yield results.
Right, so in ELA, there's a lot of focus on phonics and decoding, structured curriculum in that for grades K through 3. Even grade 4 Spanish immersion students are participating in that program. And then the literacy program is really a knowledge building program and comprehension. It's content, it's, kids are really thinking deeply, and we're seeing some nice engagement, and the responses of students during Socratic seminars and their answers to written responses and questions are really showing some nice gains. So we're hopeful.
It's that important stage where there's learning to read, and then you get to a point where it's reading to learn, and that all happens over there.
Let's see, so this is the same historical look at math. It's pretty clear from this that 8th grade has, if I want to say, rebounded nicely. They made some really nice growth and gains last year, almost returning to pre-COVID levels of performance. We didn't see a lot of variability in grade 6. Students in grade 7 are approaching their 2019 performance level. And again, we're just looking to see what are the skills and concepts that they missed, what are the gaps, where do we need to go back and review, reteach, reinforce, and then where can we accelerate students who, are doing a good job and and are ready for more challenge. So, trying to look at both ends of the spectrum and not just teach to the middle. That's what teachers are doing. So, speaking of gaps, we looked at our historical performance and the gap between our cohort of all students who took the MCAS test and our cohort student group of high needs students, which is students with disabilities, English language learners, and economically disadvantaged students. Ultimately, our goal is to narrow that gap. It has narrowed for ELA, but it's narrowed because our performance of all students dropped a little bit. But it's been pretty consistent performance for our high needs subgroup. The thing that's important to keep in mind is that this year in particular, we have more students in that high needs group than we have in the past. And they're different, they have different needs, so it's kind of sometimes hard to compare apples and oranges. But we're always working to try and close that gap by giving those students in the high needs subgroup access to grade level curriculum, making sure that their learning is as rigorous and as challenging for them as for all students. So we're scaffolding up rather than scaffolding down for the high needs subgroups. And then in math, similarly, there's a 21% gap, same as ELA. Again, you can see in math that our overall performance has dipped a little bit, but we're working to get that back. So the state has returned again this year to assigning accountability ratings to schools and districts. Those ratings are based on a variety of categories and some formulas that they have, and they're different for each school. But essentially they take into account achievement levels, student growth percentiles, high school graduation rates, absenteeism, students who are taking AP courses, and progress towards English proficiency. So just letting you know that as a district and as schools, we were given an accountability rating as not requiring any assistance or intervention. And at all schools and as a district, we're making progress towards the improvement targets that the state sets. Again, it's a complicated formula, but based on performance in one year, they set targets for the next year. So we try to meet those, and then they assign us a rating.
What are the other ratings? Like we got not requiring assistance. What is?
It's either not requiring or requiring.
Okay.
For the overall.
Okay.
Rating, and then for the classifications by schools, you can be meeting or exceeding targets, making substantial progress, making moderate progress, or not making any progress towards targets. Essentially, if you're not making any progress towards your improvement targets, then you probably are going to be requiring assistance.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Which Millis has never been in that category.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
So this is a detailed breakdown by the state that categorizes our achievement progress by subgroups, by student groups. The state is monitoring progress following the pandemic. They've assigned basically two categories of recovery and progress moving forward. And so I've highlighted the areas where our performance shows that we're making forward progress. Where you see it says not reported, that's because our subgroups are too small and they don't report those categories. But you can see that in many areas, particularly at Clyde Brown, students with disabilities, students in the low-income subgroup, and EL students making forward progress in math and ELA. At the middle school level, science, making some forward progress, and at the high school, the high needs subgroup as a whole, making progress in ELA and math, forward progress. And that's based on some formula that the state has, looking at our scores and our data over time, to determine, whether we've sort of made that recovery, and we're back to where we would have been in 2020. So we're making good progress, and we're looking at the areas where we haven't, and we're still in recovery, and we're looking at what we need to do to support students, to, make adjustments to curriculum in those areas so that we get all students back to where they were. And then while we look at our results in comparison to the state, we also look at our results in comparison to the DART school districts. And the DART districts are more similar in size and demographics to Millis. And so this is a district comparison. You can see that we fall somewhere in the middle. The DART school average for ELA was 56%, and the average for math was 52%. We were just slightly below the average for the DART schools.
Can you just explain what DART is for those new folks, like what it stands for and what it is?
Do you know what
I
DART
forget what the
stands for,
abbreviation
Bob?
is.
Yeah,
District.
District. It should be burned in my memory.
I know, I should know it too.
Um,
Essentially, the
On the website,
state
but I can't-
categorizes districts in groups based on their size and their demographics.
District analysis and
resource.
review tools.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was on there.
District
Yeah.
analysis and review tool.
So it feels, just for folks that are new,
Mhm.
it seems like random to compare us to like Sutton, but that is a similar size
Oh, sorry.
in district and same like socioeconomic, so it's like a better comparison than like Medway and Medfield and
Right.
Westwood and all the ones around
And
us.
similar populations of ELL.
Mhm.
So, and these districts change from year to year, depending on the demographics.
Yeah, so it's nice for us to compare to the state averages to see where we fall with all districts in the state. This gives us a picture of, how we're doing relative to other districts that are more similar to Millis. And I mentioned that English language learners were identified as making progress at Clyde Brown on the MCAS, and we saw that students made progress also on the Access for ELs test. So our English language learners, in addition to taking MCAS, they also take an annual Access for ELs test. And that's to measure their progress in speaking, reading, listening, and writing in English. It's, I would say it's a bit similar to MCAS. It's administered in small groups. Sometimes it's administered one-on-one. And then those results are used to determine whether they still qualify as English learners and receive services from us, or whether they qualify to exit that program. So on the left are the results from the Access testing last year. And we had 33 students who took that test. And of those students, 8 of them met the benchmarks to exit the program. So that means they are now considered former English learners, and we monitor their progress for 4 years. So if it looks like a student needs services again, we'll resume that or provide whatever they need. It's not like we just, say, we're not going to support you anymore. And it doesn't mean that they are 100% proficient in English. What it means is that they've reached a level whereby they can gain most of the skills and knowledge that they need from the general ed classrooms without being pulled out for, specialized instruction or support in English. And then just to give you some context, on the right there is our current SY24 students and their proficiency levels. So at the end of last year, we had 33 students that were English language learners. 8 met the benchmark to exit. We had some move-ins, some move-outs. We had some kindergarten students qualify as English learners. And so currently, we have 14 students at level 1. We had quite a few newcomers move in, students who spoke, little or no English.
Are those focused? Are those primarily at Clyde Brown? Are they younger, or is it?
Yes, so 38 students total in the district, 30 of those are at Clyde Brown. And a significant number in grades K, 1 and 2. But they're
it's
making
certainly our
wonderful
fastest
progress. It's so nice
growing
to see.
population.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just so you can, see where we stand currently, it's something that continually shifts and changes. But so right now we'll have 38 students who take the test in January after the holidays. And finally, the curriculum department improvement
Can
plan.
I ask you sorry,
Oh,
just
sure.
an MCAS, just going back to an MCAS
Oh, sure.
question just for a moment. The, do you, I mean, I was a school administrator a long time. I went through a lot of this kind of stuff. So I was looking at the growth percentiles. I noticed that the math, there's a little dip in the math growth for the high school. Is that an anomaly that you or have you been able to look a little bit at maybe if that's kind of a leftover from the COVID kind of lag, or
So
just
my-
a curiosity thing? I don't mean to like put you on the spot. It just was, I'm a numbers guy. I noticed it and I was just curious if
Yeah.
you know.
I know that the math department has done a very deep dive into
makes sense.
the math data. We adopted a new curriculum last year for Algebra 1 and Geometry. This
Gotcha.
year we adopted it for Algebra 2. We've done a little bit of a reorg of the math department over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But I do think that those students who took MCAS last year missed,
Yeah.
some instruction during middle school.
Yeah.
8th grade is a critical year, and oftentimes
Yeah.
we see kids make extremely high growth during 8th grade, and they
Yeah, that makes sense.
maybe didn't have that.
Yep.
We could look a lot deeper if you'd like.
I know. I was curious. I mean,
Yeah.
the timing of it. I know that's right at the beginning of. I'm also a math teacher. So like I know right at the beginning of that of their high school,
Yeah.
or end of the middle school. All that. It just was a curiosity. That's all. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
and
sure.
I think before, when we had more consistent growth percentile data, it wasn't.
Oh yeah,
a
it's
trend line, it's
yeah, it's
you know.
it can vary from year to year, but like, yeah.
And for me, the growth percentile, measuring that at the high school level is difficult because it's 2 years of growth, first of all, and the number of different factors involved in those intervening 2 years. I'm still working with growth percentile.
Same. I was
Yeah.
curious it was something I hadn't thought about looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something else. The way they calculate growth percentiles is based on, student cohorts 2 years ago who scored in the same,
Right.
range. So it's a complicated formula that they use.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're still working to
Yeah.
understand that.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
So the department supports all 3 schools and their curriculum improvement plans and goals. It oversees the English language education program and Title I math intervention at Clyde Brown. You've already heard from the 3 principals about their improvement plans and, the details in those plans. And so this overlaps a lot of that. It really focuses on 3 of the pillars of the district strategic plan that Bob outlined: the rigorous and relevant learning, the outstanding professional practice, and healthy and supportive environments. Tana talked about the early literacy screening, which is an enhancement to our tiered system of support at Clyde Brown and universal screening. We implemented a new screening tool this year at Clyde Brown in K through 3 as a result of some state guidelines around early literacy and dyslexia screening. And that tool was, we were able to purchase a new tool through a grant from the Department of Education. And that's really helped us hone in on those students who, need some support with foundational skills, and hopefully to identify students who are at risk of reading disabilities early so that we can provide that support earlier and intervene. Tana also talked about the CFB literacy program, and the teachers are really doing a fabulous job of internalizing that program. It's raising the rigor and the level of knowledge and skills of students grades K through 5. The high school is also, as I mentioned, in the process of implementing a new math program curriculum, algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. And so those teachers, again, are getting to know the program, doing professional development, spending extra time to learn how that program supports what we want kids in Millis to learn. In general, teachers this year are revisiting their curriculum maps and looking to design units and lessons that are aligned to current standards and looking at evidence-based practices. We're looking at culturally responsive teaching practices. We're looking at inclusion as a district. Those are the focus areas for professional development and for what we're asking teachers to look at in their content areas and grade levels. We have, at the middle school, Anna Hurley talked about the new requirement for the civics MCAS in grade 8, which adds one more assessment to the 8th graders' plate. Yeah. This is a pilot year, so we won't get any individual results or school results, but the state will be collecting data on how kids do. There are 2 parts to it. One's a performance assessment, and one's more of a multiple choice test. Again, it's just one more thing for the 8th graders to spend time getting ready for. Michelle Leha, the 8th grade civics teacher, is doing a great job of getting herself up to speed, getting the kids up to speed, and really understanding. We've attended webinars and trainings on what's going to be on that assessment and what we need to prepare for. So that's happening. The state did approve and release new health and PE standards this year, so in fact there's a webinar tomorrow from the state about what districts need to look at in terms of those new standards. We'll be looking closely at those over the course of this year to see if we need to make any adjustments. And I see potentially look at a math curriculum review in the future, not this year, because I know that we don't have funding for program materials or anything. We're hoping a grant might reveal itself in the future for that. But the Clyde Brown math program is 12 years old, and so we are, talking about that, and I think teachers are at Clyde Brown right now have a lot on their plate with the new literacy program. But math K to 8 is something that we're starting to take a look at, just to analyze where we are, what we're doing, what we have, and where we might need to go with that. In terms of supporting professional practice, we have 2 grants for this year from the Department of Education, 2 substantial grants to support our inclusion and co-teaching, particularly a shift at Clyde Brown. It's going to be a slow and steady process, but research shows that students make more progress when they're included in general ed classrooms and have access to grade level curriculum. So we're hoping that we can build staffing and scheduling and put the groundwork in place to move towards more inclusion at Clyde Brown over time. So there's a grant that supports professional development and teachers doing that, working on that. And then we are in the 3rd year of our high quality instructional materials implementation grant. And that's for the Wit and Wisdom literacy program at Clyde Brown. The grant has been wonderful in supporting our purchase of materials and professional development ongoing for teachers. In January, we have trainers from the program coming into Clyde Brown, spending 4 days doing some planning with the teachers, doing some observation of lessons, collaboration, looking at assessment. So the grant has been wonderful in supporting us and being able to do that. So that's good. And then, just in general terms, we're supporting what the high school is doing with the JED Foundation. Middle school is working on PBIS program, positive behavioral supports, social emotional learning, and implementing a new program called Second Step at the middle school to support social emotional learning. And then I would say a big focus, just again, is the English language learner education program, and supporting all of the newcomer families through translations and providing interpreters at conferences and open houses and meetings and things like that, and translating documents, translating materials for students and for parents at home. That's a need that we see growing here in Millis as the population grows. So that a lot of time is spent on that. I think that's all I have to say tonight. Do you have any questions? Be happy to try to answer them.
Could I just ask, as far as what you're seeing with the high needs group, and you had said that there had been a significant increase, I believe, in the number of students, is that something that you feel is based on COVID, or was it trending in that direction, do you think, with the numbers?
So Neely Urquhart, the Director of Student Services, is probably a better person to answer that. I don't have data on that. I think that what we're seeing, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, statewide, is that there's been an increase in students qualifying for special education services since COVID.
Okay.
Whether that's a result of the pandemic and lack of opportunity to learn, not sure, but they're qualifying, based on evaluations for special ed.
Yeah, I'd
Whereas-
also say, the high needs population is students with disabilities. It's EL students, so we've certainly seen a dramatic increase in that. So that part really isn't COVID related.
Right.
Economically disadvantaged, there could be, COVID could impact, some families, income and things like that. So I think it's a combination. I think we'd be seeing more kids in that high needs category anyhow, but I think COVID might have had an impact on the numbers we're seeing.
Yeah, it's hard to say because of move-ins to Millis too, people
Right.
moving in
And
and
I
out.
think- I think during the pandemic, what we saw was, we did see an increase in kids with social emotional needs, and we saw kids who were already identified as having those needs, but we saw the acuity of that increase. There were greater needs for those kids as well. Hopefully, but I have no idea, hopefully that trend might, go back as we get further and further from the pandemic.
I had a question about that too, because on the slide, number 18 here, it says that there's 221 high need students and 625 all students. Is that just in 2023? And back to the increase, I was just curious what the numbers were for the high need students in the previous years. I'm sure you don't have that
I
data
don't have that off the
pulled
top of
out
my
of
head. I can
was
get
just
it for
curious
you.
about the number comparisons there for those years.
Yeah.
I just think of it in the sense of, if we should see the trend continue to go up, whether it's COVID, whatever, and I'm talking more statewide, it seems like maybe the general education that level of expectation needs to be looked at in a sense of what the new norm is. Is that something that is even being talked about? And I more mean it in the sense of so that schools get what they need to be able to teach what the general education population is. If we see, getting up to 50%, if we get there, of high needs to general ed, it seems like we would need a formula change in order to be able to support that, and that would maybe happen if the idea of what general education is changed. I don't know if that's on the.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think from what I've heard relative to potential legislation in the State House and things like that, most of the bills being filed, so for, are looking at reimbursing for special education, which extra reimbursement there would help general ed, help, you know, a town like us divert more of our operational budget towards the general education. But they're looking at things like taking the circuit breaker from 75 to 90%, lowering the threshold of the foundation amount that circuit breaker would kick in, things like that. But I don't know what kind of traction those bills are going to have. And I definitely think that the 221 high needs students identified in 2023, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but
Yeah.
I'm certain that's probably the greatest number we've had.
Sure.
Well, just the percentage of the 30. I think it's 30% of our, like last school year, 30% of our students in Millis were considered high needs, and if you go back to 2019, it was 24%. I mean, it's a huge increase.
Oh, the only other question that I had was on slide 3, there was no third grade. I'm just assuming they were forgotten, but they are also doing just as well in that 40 to 60% range. Just starts to be.
Oh, third grade doesn't have growth percentile because it's
Oh,
nothing to
okay, I was
measure
like,
it
which one
against.
is slide
okay,
3?
got it, got it. I'm
Right,
like,
there's
where
no
did the
growth
third grade go?
percentiles for third grade because they
That's
have
their
only
first
taken
one?
one
Got it.
test,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing,
should've
just
mentioned that.
when we talk about MCAS, one nice thing about it is it provides us with a lot of data, but the thing to remember is it's one source of
marker.
data.
One
Yeah.
marker.
It's
Yeah.
it's great. And Maureen does a great job sifting through it all, and we analyze the results, and we use what we learn, but we also have to keep in mind this is one thing. There's a whole lot of other data sources we look at.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Maureen.
Thank you. Good luck with the Nutcracker this week. It's going to be fabulous.
It always is.
All right, on to the chair report, the MSBA update.
Yes, so we have 3 firms that submitted applications to be the designer of the middle high school school project through the feasibility and design stage. Raymond Design Associates, Tape Architects, who did Clyde Brown, and PK Studio Architecture all submitted applications. We had a meeting last week.
Yeah.
I think it was last week, where we reviewed the applications. Yeah, and then we'll be conducting interviews. The design selection panel, which includes Denise, myself, and Rich Nichols from Millis, and is it 17 other?
It is.
It's a big panel. People from the MSBA and people from the, right, and we'll conduct interviews with that group on the 5th. And at the end of that, we'll select a top choice, and then the next step would be negotiating with that. So the process is moving along, and I
By the end of the calendar year, we should have a designer on
design.
board.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's soon.
exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And then the FY24 budget, we continue to monitor it, and our projections look on track. So that's good news. We were recently awarded a $12,000 grant to help us implement the new IEP that is being implemented throughout the state. And so this grant will help us train staff, and it will allow us to purchase an extension to Power School student information system, which has all our student information, and to be able to get IEP reports, pulling data from that will make things so much
That'll be
easier
amazing.
for us.
Yeah.
It's nice to have it
Yeah.
all in one.
That would be great.
Yeah, so you know, it was terrific that Neely was able to get that grant. And then kind of back to what you were talking about, Shana, with the state and looking to them for help. It's the last meeting I was at of superintendents, the advocacy group with the state legislature was saying that the supplemental budget that they talked about providing money to schools to help offset the 14% tuition increase for out-of-district schools, it doesn't look like there's going to be any movement on that, so we're not going to be getting any help on that. You know, the good news is it's in our budget, but we were hoping that we might get something to mitigate those costs, that we could reduce the amount of stabilization funds that we use to fund this year. But I think the figure in the language of the proposed bill is they'd reimburse schools, districts, where these extra costs were 7.5% of net school spending. First of all, they haven't told us what our net school spending was last year. But if our net school spending in 2020, which is the latest information they have on our profile, 2020 we spent, net school spending was like $19 million. So it would mean, if we use that number, it would mean we'd have to have, the tuitions would have had to have cost us $1.4 million more than we anticipated, and that's not the case. So they said there was probably like 3 districts in the whole state that would get money if that bill passes. So
That's frustrating.
yeah. Somewhere Steve Catalano was saying, you don't depend on the state.
This is true. All right, and then the superintendent report.
So I have enrollment numbers for November, and essentially we're up 2 students district-wide. We're at 1191. We have, and those 2 students enrolled at Clyde Brown. So Clyde Brown is at 597 students. The middle school is at 269 students. The high school's at 319. And Ties is at 6 students, and there are 20 out-of-district students, so it's the same. Those numbers haven't changed. So we get 2 more kids in Clyde Brown in November.
Have any correspondence or anything? I know that
Just calendars for some people.
calendar. There was an email about
Yes.
the bleed.
Oh, Stop the Bleed.
Stop the bleed
Yeah.
from
Stop the Bleed.
that they're looking to train people.
Right,
here.
yeah, Millis is one of 11 districts, I think, that is participating in Stop the Bleed. And so we're going to be working on arranging a time for staff training with Stop the Bleed. We already have Stop the Bleed kits in our defibrillator devices.
Right, that was from Senator or Representative Dooley.
Right, Representative Dooley, and it was a senior project. One of the Fazoko kids.
Right.
Like, blanking on the name. But she did, that was her senior project.
Yeah.
And so A lot of our staff have had some training in it, but that was a few years ago. And so we're looking forward to this. And I think their goal is they'd like to get Stop the Bleed kit in every classroom. I don't know if, you know, they're going to have enough money to do that, but that's what they're shooting for and getting people trained. So
Not shooting for.
that's their aspiration.
So have we, I know that email, someone had said they were looking for us to respond, right?
I've reached out.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other announcements? No? We do have some executive session.
Yes.
Okay. We'll take a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn open session to move to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining of litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. I'm reading right from Bob's memo.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Gibbons.
Aye.
I am an aye. Ms. Ganishari.
Aye.
And Mr. Powers.
Aye.
We are adjourned until December 12th, it says in our notes, for the next one.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.